Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Liam. I have a bars haircut. How does it get any better than that? Just had my bars run. Welcome to No Problems, Only Possibilities show. Once a month we do this for free, and then there's also the subscription too, where you get three more for only $40 a month. How does it get any better than that? Now, this week I thought it'd be fun to invite a friend of mine who is a wonderful lady, lives near Toronto in Canada. She's a facilitator for Xmen. And last week, she said, "Oh, could you help me promote my upcoming class?" And I went, "Wow, that's amazing," because somebody's been asking about Xmen on that No Problems, Only Possibilities show. So it's amazing how the universe works. So I'm going to just say hi, Mary. How you doing?
I am great. It's wonderful to be here. I'm super excited.
Awesome.
And I just love how it all comes together. You know, in X-Men, they just move at speed of space, right? It's like, oh, okay, I felt an energy there. I said, I'm going to connect with Liam. And then Liam's like, oh, what can we do with this? And then it's like fast, 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 which is the way X-Men create.
Cool.
Super fast.
That's awesome. I'm going to basically, I'm just going to interview you if that's okay. So what is an X-Man?
How did I know that would be your first question? So in Access Consciousness, we say that X-Men are those who might possibly be labeled. So those that are different. So we might pop up words like ADD, ADHD, OCD, autism spectrum. It goes way beyond that as well, but those are kind of the main labels that we see out there. And with X-Men, we have a point of view that nothing's wrong, nothing's broken, that those are just labels, and that there's a talent, a brilliance, a capacity behind those labels that is not often acknowledged. So, you know, usually the X-Men are made wrong for something, which if you actually take a look at it is like this brilliant capacity. Exactly. So it came up with the term X-Men because X-Men from the Marvel comics were the different ones that had this hidden brilliance and often did try to hide it. You know, they'd go and escape to a phone booth or whatever, or desperately try to hide from the world. And it really doesn't work.
That's so, what I liked about the X-Men movies was that they were often hid because they were made wrong for their capacities and nobody knew how to deal with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So you're also a teacher, so you're really interested in these X-Men capacities. So what do you see in the classroom with regards to X-Men capacities, and how do you, because some of them are weird, so how do you deal with that?
Well, long before I've been teaching now for over 30 years, and long before I even, you know, knew the word X-Men or had worked with Access Consciousness, all the kind of weird ones, the different ones, the kids that were just like a little quirkish, they always found their way to my music room. So they knew that that was a place kind of where they were allowed to be different, where I was, you know, wasn't judging them, where I actually kind of embraced their difference, where we could have a good chat. So, and then I was able for a long time to be able to kind of tap into their brilliance, and ADD, ADHD never bothered me at all. It's like, give them a job, right? Like, okay, there's that kid that has ADD. Here, can you run this down to the office? Whatever it was, there was always some kind of job. And oftentimes like a brilliance as far as the musical capacity that was there as well. They often go, that creative element goes side by side with it. So yeah, I've been aware of X-Men for a long time, and I'm also seeing that they're popping up more and more and more, and kind of putting this demand on the world to be seen, and you know, creating a fuss. And that's why it's like an energy that's super present. I know when I contacted Liam, it's like these X-Men are out there screaming, saying, you know, get this information out there. And so yeah, lots of X-Men in teaching. Can be challenging to teach for sure, you know, and difficult for, it's a little easier for music teachers. It's sometimes really difficult for classroom teachers.
Yeah. I too I'm an ex-teacher. Yay! On the X.
An XX teacher?
and an ex-sex teacher. No, or an ex-sex teacher. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed that I had this great affinity with autistic kids, and I do know that Access talks about kids with autism and how they tend to communicate differently. So, like, could you give us some more information on about how Xmen communicate and what tools can we use to communicate more easily with Xmen to make everything more fun and joyful and ease?
Yeah, because they totally get the fun, joyful part if you're willing to be open to that. The cool thing with Xmen is their primary language is energy, which is sometimes where you see like nonverbal autistic. If you're willing to kind of communicate in a really different way, those communication barriers will kind of dissolve. So energetic communication can be really, really helpful with Xmen. So for example, it sounds, I don't know what everybody on the call's backgrounds are, but I'll just throw it out there where you can actually kind of download a picture of what you would like to see going on. Even like I don't have really special needs as in super demanding students necessarily, but when I'm in a large rehearsal, I will kind of beforehand give a picture out there, download that information about the rehearsal, how it should run, what it should look like, and these brilliant little Xmen, they will receive that information without me even saying anything.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And how can we learn to receive their communication? Because I know I when I was a teacher, I didn't even really know that I was doing that, although obviously I was. But how can we create a difference there with ourselves in the receiving part of it?
Well, it is a muscle that can be developed. And the key point is what you said as far as the receiving. So as soon as you're willing to receive, or even asking the question, what would it take to receive more from the Xmen, then just those questions themselves can really change that line of communication. The Xmen are just waiting for you to communicate with them. So they're always sending information. They're always perceiving information. And so just asking that question, like, what would it take to be able to receive from them? Dropping your barriers, expanding out. It's really interesting to see what shows up when you start to just play with it.
That sounds cool. Is it really that easy?
It's amazingly easy. Like the first time I was I work with, kids that are mildly on the spectrum, but not like way out there. And the first time a couple of years ago, I was in the presence of a nonverbal autistic kid. I thought, like, what do I do here? Like, I don't know if I can do that. And I literally sat down on the edge of the bed and had a conversation with her without me saying anything, her saying everything. It's like, wow, this is really weird. I'm actually like having this conversation without any words coming out of either of our mouths. So it was my willingness to say, hey, I actually have this talent and ability capacity. Likely if you're on this call, you have some of those capacities yourself. And it's just like, are you willing to actually kind of play with them, try them out, and see what shows up for you? Yeah,
that's so cool. Now we've got 15 minutes or so. So if anybody does have a question, you've got Mary here, who's just like awesome. Now will be a good time to either type your question in or pipe up. And whilst we're waiting for those questions, I do actually have another question. It's a personal one. I tend to get really frustrated with people and easily angered, easily go into frustration when I'm sending a lot of pictures to people and they're just not fucking getting it. And oops, I swore. So as an Xmen, how can I not get frustrated and make it more easy for me? Because my whole body starts to get like this.
Yeah, I mean, and I teach the Xmen that I work with that not everybody's willing to receive.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, you have this capacity. It's like, yes, I want to really communicate with this person, and that person is capable of receiving, and you know that you're capable of, contributing to them. But if they're not willing to receive it, it's like bars or anything else. If the being is not willing to receive it or ready to receive it, then they may not get the information that you're contributing.
Mm-hmm. So what do I do with that? Like, that's how I usually function, like,
and how does that work for you, Liam?
Very well.
Not very well. So is there another question you could ask when you get like that?
Oh, what are they willing to receive?
Mm-hmm.
I've just gone blank.
Yeah, or even like, can they receive this information? And then you just get a no. It's like, okay, have a nice day, And I mean, frustration and anger is always like usually a lack of information, right? So you're not getting the information that you really are wanting to get from that other person. You're not getting the communication that you've decided you want to get. Mm-hmm. So you're getting frustrated and angry about that. Mm-hmm. So anytime that I go into frustration, anger, anything like that, it's like, okay, where's the question here? What question can I ask? Is that person willing to receive? It can be really challenging. I mean, I see possibilities all the time with the people that I work with, and it can feel frustrating when there's a different possibility and you have these barriers that you're up against with the other person. Yeah. It's like, okay, next person.
I get that, and there's a but there in my universe. Can I talk about the but?
Yes.
Yeah. My but is, okay, that's great, but say if I'm a teacher and I'm in a classroom of children, some of them are Xmen, some of them have the capacity, some of them can receive, but others can't. But I still have to teach the little buggers. So yeah. I can't just walk away from that situation. What questions can I be asking in that?
How can I manipulate this person? Yeah, a lot of conscious manipulation. It's like what's going to work here, mm-hmm. and that's going to show up. In every situation, it's going to show up differently, right? I mean, for sure, with your background, manipulation of entities, you have that experience and background. Like now's the time. And so often when they're not receiving us, because there's entities getting in the way and trying to control the situation too. So I mean, you've got those out of the box tools to use at this point. But when you didn't have those tools, it's like, what do you do when they're bouncing off the walls? And it's one thing to get, like, I understand why they're bouncing off the walls. I see their talents, abilities, capacities. And, I have to ask, is everybody safe? Is this a safe situation? Does someone have to be removed? Do I need an extra person to support here? It's just question.
Oh, you mean you can actually ask pragmatic questions?
Pragmatic questions, yeah.
You don't have to be all airy-fairy, spiritual type questions.
No, I mean, when I'm at a school system, I don't use the language of access. I don't use the language of Xmen. I mean, it's all about pragmatics. And in an ideal world, maybe, for example, you wouldn't have a diagnosis, but sometimes a student having a label of ADHD is a way to get, let's say, Dragon Speak, so that it's a program on the computer where they could speak into the computer and it puts it into words. So if they don't have that label from the system, they can't have access to that technology. So, it's that willingness to, well, would this actually contribute here, or a resource person or someone else, to know that somebody has your back and you don't have to do this by yourself.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Now, there is one other question that came up for me, because you mentioned something that Xmen sort of create at the speed of space. Could you expand on that quickly?
Well, just say Xmen has a capacity to create very fast and function very fast. And when there's frustration, it's often when you're slowing things down, to try to kind of fit in with this reality. And you're not willing to be like fast creation, just fast being.
I remember I used to work for the Queensland Autistic Association, and what we did in those days, we did task analysis, where you take a task and you break it down into steps. And we were teaching this young man, he was about 16, how to shave. and we broke it down into like 30 steps, and it was so frustrating for him.
Yeah.
So, what could I have done differently with that, with these tools? Because it wasn't working. He was getting frustrated. He'd come out with, like half a beard,
So, I mean, if you had those tools now, would you be able to download him a picture of how it's done?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it's that willingness to trust, for want of a better word, that he's capable of doing that. Of course, always in the question, are you safe with that razor? Every autistic spectrum would be different, so you're not just going to hand the person a razor, but your willingness to be in the question and be aware, hey, can he receive all this information at once? Okay, here you go, here it is, done. And that might be with words, or it might be with a picture. And what's the worst thing that could happen? He'd end up with half a beard.
Which is quite funny, really.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just like empowering the Xmen to know that they know and what they know, like giving them that power. So breaking it down into 30 steps where you're disempowering that person.
Yeah, and you're making it so slow that it's dull and boring. I mean, who wants to follow 30 steps to have a shave?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you think of 30 steps when you have a shave?
No, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do the rest of the day.
And again, it doesn't mean that sometimes breaking it down to the 30 steps might work. So there's no really fixed points of view. Yes, they create at speed of space, and can slowing it down and breaking it into steps be a contribution? So not necessarily functioning from the conclusion that that would be a wrong thing to do.
So you're saying actually stay more in the question rather than come to conclusion that all autistic kids do not do task analysis.
Yeah, because every autistic spectrum is going to function in a very different way. So it may be a contribution for someone to break it down into 30 steps and say, hey, how much fun can we have with this? And like that's instilling chaos to that person. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and we'll do this, and then this, and isn't it going to be fun? Let's see what we can do. Let's go. So that could be something really different.
Cool. What do you mean by instilling chaos?
Well, it's kind of a whole different conversation, but so we want to function often in the school system or mental institutions from control, of always feeling like we're going to control the situations and control the people in the institutions. And there's kind of, even with ourselves as Xmen, there's like this desperate sense of fitting in. And in order to fit in, we want to control our lives. And, that's sometimes what's behind an OCD. So instilling chaos, sometimes when things just aren't working for an Xmen, you can just ask to instill more chaos. So adding something more, just adding more.
Oh, I'll see what you mean now. Like when I was a kid, when I was doing homework, Mum would ask me to switch off the TV, switch off the radio, just sit down and do my homework. And it's sort of like, well, you can see I'm sitting on my bed right now. I don't like sitting.
It's very difficult, right?
Yeah, it is very difficult. I don't understand why chairs are created. A lounge I can understand because you'd lie down on it, but a chair it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And then, but when I do have a lot going on, like now, if I had my computer on and some clearings going on and maybe a movie going on in the background too, and maybe sometimes I'm cooking as well, I seem to be able to create a lot better. So is that generally the same for most Xmen, as like give them more to do, allows them to, what does it do?
Yeah, I mean, what can you add? Like, as an Xmen, so let's just take it away for a minute from, if we're facilitating other Xmen or working with them, and as ourselves as Xmen, it's like, well, what can we add to our lives? What can we add to our lives? What can we add to our lives?
Yeah.
That's that chaos piece.
Yeah, because so often it's sort of like, what do we have to take away? Like even in a budget, it's always about, let's tighten the budget. Let's take out the fun things.
Yeah.
Rather than, what can we add? What would be fun to add to this?
Yeah.
Who could we add to this?
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like necessarily busy work, that we're adding busy work. It could be quiet or walking or meditation or, it doesn't have to show up when I say, what can I add to my life? It could be something to contribute to the body as well.
Wow, that's cool. I totally forget
Yeah.
about that sometimes.
Yeah.
My poor body.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it gets left out of the picture, eh?
So, we've got a few minutes left. So could you talk about Xmen bodies? I mean, are they different to regular bodies?
What do you know about that, Liam? Is your body different? Your ability to heal, is it different? Is it
Well,
Are Xmen bodies
my
different?
personal body is very different. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look the same. It doesn't function the same way.
Yeah.
It's very quick. I have to walk fast. If I don't walk fast, my body actually starts to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And every Xmen body is different, right? So there isn't like a formula for an Xmen body. Generally speaking, Xmen bodies like to move. They create when they move. It's the ADD, ADHD. I create when I move all the time. My sport is triathlons, and I'm always moving. Yeah, everybody's different. Now, the one thing I do want to say, though, is that sometimes it can be hard on Xmen bodies because you perceive the world in such a different way. And without getting into that, just to say that sometimes we perceive it in our bodies. So that's how we're picking up information. And sometimes that can be a little hard on the bodies.
yeah, so that's like.
Can you talk more about that?
Oh, about when it's hard on the body. So an Xmen can perceive exponentially more than most humans on the planet. So you're receiving information all the time. So you might be receiving information about someone who has a sore hip, just as an example, walking down the street, and all of a sudden your hip feels very sore and there's an intensity in your body. So for an Xmen, it can be really helpful if you have any kind of intensity in your body, just to say, oh, what am I perceiving here? So it's like sort of like who does it belong to, but it's a little bit more to the who does it belong to. It's like, what am I actually perceiving here? And it might be you're perceiving the earth, or you're perceiving someone else's energies.
So I've noticed that with autistic kids that we have generally in education, we try to teach them to fit into the box of feelings. But when you do ask that question, what are you perceiving? It's sort of like, and they get it. It's sort of like, it's not mine. I'm perceiving it.
And that's a great starting point. Like if you just don't know what to do working with Xmen, if you're just like, dipping your toes into the water, just start asking your Xmen in your world, hey, what are you perceiving here? And they will get that. I use that at my school. I use it, in my classes. I just say, oh, what is it you're perceiving? And, it could be an energy. They may not be able to put it into words. If you're working autistic or nonverbal autistic, you just ask the question. It's not that they have to give you an answer to that question, but just asking the question can really shift the energy and create more ease.
Cool. Okay. Well, what have you got up your sleeve? Not that you've got any sleeves today, but I believe you're doing a class. Is it you're doing a tele class? Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a telecall on this Sunday, whatever that date is, 27th, I think, Sunday afternoon. And then I do live classes here in London, Ontario, if you're in the Ontario area, Canada area. Yeah. But just starting to look at what classes are available. On the Access Consciousness site, there is more information about Xmen, and also a listing of the classes kind of going on all across the globe.
Mm-hmm. And your tele class, is that a paid class, a free class?
Yeah, this next class is a class you can register. I'm just going to put the link in the chat here. Mm-hmm. It's a 2.5-hour call. Mm-hmm. See if I can actually do this. Oh, I did it. Amazing. It's an 1.5-hour telecall where we'll go into a lot of the things we talked about here, but in a great more detail on that, and answer everybody's questions. So we'll be looking more at Xmen and bodies and the tools, to get to manage being an Xmen and what is an Xmen. And we're just kind of expanding considerably on what we chatted about today. That's $80 Canadian for that class.
Oh, you mean so it's like $5 American? That's cool.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's a Facebook page for Xmen as well. There's just some great information out there. Mm-hmm. It's people who have come to the classes tell me that it just changes their lives dynamically. Yeah. And I used to think it was all about me being a better teacher when I first started doing this work. And then all of a sudden one day I went, whoa, wait a minute here. I think I'm an Xmen. And then my whole life changed.
Wow, you mean when you acknowledged that you were one, your life changed?
Yeah, it did.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, took a while. Took a while for me to get that.
Do you do private sessions?
I can do private sessions, yes, as well. Yeah. You can message me here.
Mary Case.
At hotmail.com or a Facebook. I'm pretty good with Facebook. I'm a school teacher by day. I have another year before I'm going to choose retirement. So I have not taken the step yet of creating a web page, but that will sometime in the future.
You're a school teacher by day, Xmen by night.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mary, so much for coming on. I'll be sending this out to people with the links that we've got in the chat there. So if you haven't got them yet, we also have another 300-400 people that are waiting for the recording of this. So I'll endeavour to get.
How's it get any better than that?
Yeah, tonight.
Liam, thank you so much for having me. This was really, I've been asking a lot of questions about what's it going to take to get this information out there. The Xmen are really asking for it. And so I just, a week or so ago, I just sent it out to facilitators to say, hey, I'm here, I'm available. What's it going to take to get it out there? And it's really cool what's unfolding.
I'm also going to ask everybody that is watching this is maybe you could put this out there on your own Facebook page or on a page that that would be willing to receive it, so that we can get some of this information out. Mary has talked a lot tonight. Even if for a beginner, it's going to start. It's like throwing a fishing rod out, and she's put a little bit of bait on there, and it's like there's some really good stuff for people to start playing with already. So if you know of somebody that would like this information, can you please send it to others? And if you're an Xman, maybe you'd like to consider coming along to the class or acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else you'd like to add, Mary? Have you got any books or anything coming up?
I haven't written a book yet, no. In the future, perhaps, yes. There's a global online Access Consciousness global magazine that you can download the app for. I think it's $4.99. And there's an Xmen specialties section in there. And I did write an article on OCD, ADHD, autism spectrum, and sports. That's in the May edition, which is a whole nother wonderful story about what a contribution those gifts can be in the world of sports. So that's in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. Thanks, everybody, for coming on.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to chat.
Saying, hey, look, let's get this stuff out there. And I'll see the people on subscription next week sometime. Hopefully. I'll be in Costa Rica.
Nice.
I'll see you all shortly. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Bye.
Bye.